Hello everyone, a very good afternoon or evening depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you very much for coming along to this webinar to talk about how to ensure your institution excels with integrity. We should take about 45 minutes of your time today, including an opportunity for a designated question and answer session at the end. If you're familiar with the GoToWebinar software that we're using, you might know that there is a questions option as part of the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. If you would like to ask questions as and when they occur to you, please feel free to type them up and send them over via the panel, and we're happy to gather those and answer towards the end of the presentation. We'll also be making a recording of this webinar as well, so if you wish to view it again or share it with your colleagues, that will be an option for you. And this will be made available on Epigeum's YouTube channel at the end of this week. At the moment, you are all on mute because the feedback can sometimes affect the quality of the sound. So if you do have any questions or issues you'd like to raise, please do so in the question panel as I explained before. So, firstly, just a few introductions. That's me, Charlene, on the left-hand side. I'm the product manager in the marketing team for the Epigeum studying programs. We also have Dr. Tracey Bretag and Rachel Crooks joining us on this webinar today. They are working on the development of the new online course, Academic Integrity. I'll let them both introduce themselves now.
Hi everybody. I'm really thrilled to be here to chat to you about the new program that we're developing with Epigeum. I hope by the end of the session you'll understand my vision for it as the lead advisor, and of course we'll be happy to answer any questions. Those of you who know me, I've seen the invitation list, and there are many people who are listening who do know me. I've been working on this topic for about 15 years, and I'm the Director of the Office for Academic Integrity at the University of South Australia. So I feel like I'm ready and really excited to lead this exciting and innovative new program. So looking forward to chatting some more throughout this evening.
Thank you, Tracy. And Rachel?
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Crooks. I'm from the publishing team. So I've had the absolute pleasure of working with Tracy to develop the proposed sort of outline for this collaboration. It's been really exciting. We've had so many good conversations and ideas together. So I'll be telling you a little bit more about the details of what will be in the online course and how a collaboration works and what it's like to be involved with Epigeum.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so we'll just go through the agenda before we get started. So firstly, I'll provide a bit of background on Epigeum itself. We're the organisation that puts together online courses through a collaborative model. And then following this, Tracy will discuss the context of academic integrity in higher education and present her vision for this course. Then following this, Rachel will give a course overview as well as talk through how our development group collaboration process works. Then finally, I will give you a brief course demonstration of one of our published courses to give you a taste of what an online course looks like. We will then wrap up with a Q&A session, and I'll present you with some contact details as well for further information. We were founded in 2005 as a spin-out originally from Imperial College London. Our two founders created the company in response to what they felt was a lack of timely support for researchers. One of our founders was doing his PhD at the time while working full-time when he came across issues that he wanted and needed to be advised on. The course that he was taking would either be a face-to-face course that took place 3 months later or an inadequate, dated and boring material that didn't quite fit his needs. He saw this as an opportunity to work with universities to create supported materials for researchers that gave just-in-time support for those issues. And that's where Epigeum started. In over 10 years, we have expanded to creating teaching and leadership programs intended for staff and professionals, as well as studying programs, courses for students, of which academic integrity will be one of. Epigeum was acquired by Oxford University Press in May 2015. OUP is a division of the University of Oxford and a non-for-profit organisation. It has enabled us to further both our missions and to continue to build very high-quality online courseware. To date, we have created over 92 online courses across 20 different programs. Epigeum is a globally focused organisation and has worked with over 280 universities worldwide to develop and deliver innovative online learning courses across 30 different countries worldwide to date. Now that you have a bit of background about Epigeum, I'm going to pass on to Tracy, who will take you through the context of academic integrity in higher education.
Great. Well, I actually have given this presentation in a number of different forums and different versions of it, and some of you may have even heard it. So it's sort of a condensed version of what I've been talking about for the last 2 years, particularly in relation to the rising threat of contract cheating. What I'm going to focus on tonight is the Academic Integrity Program, which is a suite, not just one, but a suite of online courses for both students and staff, with the idea that that will help each institution to foster a consistent approach to academic integrity. I don't think I'm going to be telling you anything new if you've heard me speak before. What I do hope is that it condenses much of my thinking, and that's why it's such an exciting opportunity to be the lead advisor. So a bit of an overview of the presentation. Why do we think we need one? Maybe you think you don't. Maybe your institution's already got a great program, in which case, fantastic. I think many institutions, including my own, don't have a university-wide program for staff and students. I'm going to place the program on academic integrity in a global, Australasian and local context, and ask us to consider who we think the problem is in relation to this issue. Is it students? Is it teachers? Is it the higher education provider, whether that's a college or a university? And talk to you briefly about what I see as a new era of contract cheating. In line with international best practice, I'm going to talk about the need for a multi-pronged and holistic approach, and briefly talk to you about sort of the main elements of the Academic Integrity Program, which Rachel will elaborate on as well. My colleague Rowena Harper and I are leading an Australian national funded project funded by the OLT on academic integrity. It's contract cheating and assessment design, and we're exploring the connection. And we've been thinking about this for a while, and this image of a perfect storm keeps coming up to us. We think the reason that contract cheating has emerged as a particular issue in recent years is because we have created and are part of a perfect storm. Now that perfect storm in terms of the last couple of years globally is that we think that there's a changing face of higher education. And I only have 20 minutes to talk to you, so very briefly, it's the commercialization and marketization of higher education. While we see our students, I certainly don't, but where students are seen as customers and our courses and our learning are seen as products to be bought and sold. Coupled with that, we have increasing internationalization, which has many wonderful benefits, including, hopefully, increasing our understanding of other cultures. But it also brings with it some challenges in that we have students for whom English is an additional language and they need extra support, or they have different understandings about academic integrity or different educational preparation. At the same time, we've widened participation, particularly in the Australian context, and we have very diverse student bodies. So it isn't just international students who comprise our diverse classroom. We have mature age students. We have students with many different needs and abilities. We have students with mental health issues. We have students from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we have a very diverse classroom, and we don't necessarily have the resources to support those students, though we very much want to. And at the same time, there's more and more pressure on universities than ever before with increasing managerialism, metrics, this idea that everything can be measured, not just research, but teaching and relationships and everything we do. There's increasing competition at all levels in terms of funding, and increasing competition for our students in terms of admissions and our performance in teaching and research, and those constant ranking tables that keep coming up in the news and keep being sent around by our vice chancellors to remind us about where we sit in those rankings, constant reminders to us that that's where we sit. There are socio-political and digital disruptions, and the sense, particularly by our students, that the job markets are more precarious than ever, and the sense that we need to get a degree so we can get a job, but we don't know what the job's even going to be by the time we graduate. I'm rushing through this, and all of you can imagine there's so much more to say about this, and once again I do want to thank my colleague Rowena Harper for her insights and our many discussions on this topic. But coupled with all of those changes to higher education around the world, there is a sense that there's increasing corruption, or maybe it's not increasing, but maybe we're just seeing it more, and certainly there's lots of media scandals and, you know, without naming any names, you know, international leaders who perhaps are not providing much of an ethical model. And there are definitely changing social values and norms, and perhaps there are some intergenerational issues that we need to think of as well, where our younger students don't see things quite as we do regarding the way we act in terms of our use of text, but also how we act as part of a member of an academic community. So in the Australasian context, and again, I'm just talking about the last couple of years, because I mean this has been happening probably for a good 20 years, but the last 2 years I think have seen a rapid shift in so many ways. And those of us who've joined the conversation in Australia will be familiar with all these scandals. The My Master scandal in 2015, where students on the East Coast in particular were found, many hundreds of students, to have used an online cheat site called My Master. At around the same time, it made news as well, fake diploma mills. It was clear that they were available to students to buy testaments, parchments that looked exactly the same as universities, right down to their watermarks and their paper, for a very small fee. We had an ICAC investigation into corruption in higher education, and as a result of that, and if many of you would have seen on SBS and ABC, the various scandals around pens for hire, for example, and students outsourcing their whole degrees, as a result of those various scandals, TEXA, our national regulator, sent a request to all higher education providers asking for an assurance of academic integrity. So every single higher provider of education in Australia had to respond to that and show what we were doing to counter these concerns. And the scandals just went on. You know, that wasn't just in 2015. We had more and more in 2016, particularly in the vet sector. So, you know, the vocational education sector and the private providers of higher education sector, with ghost students enrolling online, but in fact they didn't exist. Fraudulent recruitment practices, where we found that there were agents going out, for example, into the APY lands and offering marijuana and alcohol and laptops and iPads to students if they just signed on the dotted line to say that they were enrolled, and they never were. And then there was concerns, obviously coupled with that, about the low standards of those providers. But the scandals just keep going. Even just last month, there was a big scandal around the ethics of Airtasker, which is an outsourcing provider of all sorts of different tasks, from cleaning and driving and food delivery, who were also taking on tasks of writing for students for their assessments for exams. So it just keeps going on. And certainly in the Australasian context, we had many universities reporting an infiltration of the university email and social media by cheat sites, presenting themselves as if they were legitimate businesses or even a branch of the university, and offering, and I'll say in inverted commas, help to students who may be struggling. And coupled with that electronic sort of blitzing, we've had a marketing blitz on campus and in the local community, and I'll show you some of these things. These are some of the posters, some of the online examples that I've just quickly gathered together, which these are the sorts of things we see on my campus and at different campuses. You can see here that you can go online and you can calculate what it's going to cost to buy your assignment. Certainly in my position as Director of the Office for Academic Integrity, I see blatant cheating using online cheat sites every single day. We see particular student groups being targeted. The top left corner, I think, is the real worry. This was one day we came into my university, and this poster was plastered all over the backs of toilet doors, on every lecture theatre seat, on the pin boards, notice boards. And what I really find distressing about this poster is my Chinese colleagues tell me, in addition to offering to do assignments for students, they're also recruiting, this bottom part of the poster is recruiting students who are distinction and HD level students who want to become contract cheat site writers. So they're actually corrupting our good students as well. And it goes on. My colleague at the University of Canberra, Rebecca Audrey, put this list together for me about a year ago, and I think the list has proliferated since then. These are just a list of the contract cheat sites, the commercial providers with an Australian domain name. So there are thousands of others, and in the UK and elsewhere, but these are the ones that Rebecca could quickly collate for me when I said, look, how many websites do you think are there? And as she explained to me, it's almost not worth putting together the list, because as soon as one website hits the headlines and there's a scandal about them, they just change their domain name and continue doing their work of soliciting business by sometimes naive students and sometimes more corrupt students. So, what has that meant for us in the classroom and in our local context? Well, I think there's a sense that there's an exponential rise in cheating. And I want to differentiate here between academic integrity breaches, the sort of breaches we've seen for many years, such as students not knowing how to use sources and perhaps cutting and pasting more than they should from internet sources, to deliberate cheating. So I'm not shying away from that word in this case. So an exponential rise in actual cheating, such as contract cheating. And of course this results in a massive caseload of academic integrity breach investigations, which takes a lot of resources for universities. And when you do have serious breaches such as contract cheating, it isn't just one person dealing with it. You normally have university level decision making with a number of stakeholders involved. I wouldn't like to actually try to work out what that costs the university to run a 1-hour formal inquiry, or whatever your university calls it, to determine a case with, say, 8 senior staff involved. And of course that then results in serious penalties for students. It might be failure in the course, suspension, expulsion, and even rescinding of grades, which we've seen right across the sector. But still, I think there's this sense by people right across Australasia. When I say Australasia, I'm thinking about Australia and New Zealand specifically, because I'm most familiar with those contexts, but also in other countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. There's a sense that that the academic integrity processes at most universities are really just scratching the surface. We're hardly identifying much of what's happening, because it's actually very difficult to identify. So, what's the problem? We're always at conferences, and I've, as I said, I've presented different versions of this presentation at different conferences and forums. And I think there's this sense that people say, look, it's just those bad students. Is it them? Are they the problem? Is it their lack of understanding of their responsibilities as members of that academic community? Is it their lack of educational preparation? Is it their poor academic literacies? Is it their lack of engagement in learning, or their poor decision making under pressure? Is it something else, or is it all of those and more? I think it's all of those and more. But I think they're not the only stakeholder involved. If we think about only talking to students about academic integrity, I think we're missing the point. Is it us? Is it us academics, our teaching academics, people responsible for teaching courses at universities? Is it our fault? Is it our lack of commitment to embedding the values and practices which we espouse and we hold so dear, but really embedding that in terms of curriculum design, teaching, assessment, marking and moderation? Is it our lack of understanding of best practices to prevent and respond to breaches when they do occur, including the consistent use of Turnitin? Now, I'm not trying to pretend that Turnitin is any way a magic bullet to the issue of contract cheating or academic integrity breaches generally, but it is one useful tool we can use, and most universities do have access to that or something similar, another text matching software. And I do find, in my own experience anyway, and talking to colleagues, that most staff are not even using the tools available to us, such as Turnitin. And then is it our fault because we don't have a commitment to following our existing institutional policy, including taking the brave step of referring potential cases to the relevant decision maker? There's a whole bunch of reasons why that might not be happening, but is that part of the problem? Or is it something bigger than all of us? Is it actually the institution's issue? Is it the higher education provider, and I use that word broadly because it might be a university or a college? Is it our the institution's lack of leaders to champion academic integrity at every level? We need people at senior levels, we need administrative staff, we call them professional staff at our university, and a teaching staff, senior curriculum leaders and program directors and so on, as well as students. We need leaders to champion it. And I believe we need a clear and consistent counter-campaign. I mentioned that avalanche of marketing materials which promote cheat sites as the norm, but are we putting up a counter-campaign? Are we putting up posters which talk about the values of integrity? Are we putting up digital campaigns which talk about what it means to actually act with integrity, and promoting all the sources and amazing services we already have at our university so that students know where to access them? And I think there's a problem too, that until recently, and I'm hoping this is changing, that we haven't had a commitment from universities to really address the problem openly, collegially, and with dedicated resources. We say it's important, but then as soon as there's a scandal, it just gets pushed under the rug, and we don't act together as a sector to address it. So I think there is a need for some program which looks at all of these stakeholders and says, hey, how can we change the situation as it is? So the last 15 years or so, certainly the time I've been researching this topic, I've seen a really concerted effort by Australian universities to improve academic integrity policies and processes. And I think my own research has shown there's been a shift from punitive to educational approaches. So we don't tend to try to, I remember 15 years ago people saying, oh, plagiarism, and you got tarred and feathered if you were guilty of that, and the words offences, and you were found, it was sort of like a legalistic approach to it. And I think that's really changed, and I commend our universities for doing that. And there has been a strong emphasis on learning support and recognising that very diverse educational, cultural, and linguistic background of our students. But that's not what we're dealing with now. I think there's been a recent shift to students outsourcing their assignments, and I think that is much more than an academic literacies issue. Although academic literacies remain critical, and we're certainly not going to throw that baby out with the bathwater. We're going to make that part of any program, but we can't think we've done our job if we leave it there. So staff and students have a different idea about this, particularly around contract cheating. And there's been some research done in the UK. My colleague Phil Newton did some work, and he found that while in the UK and Australia the standard response is to suspend a student if they're found to have outsourced their work to a third party, about 90% of undergraduate students thought that a more lenient penalty than expulsion should be applied. I'm probably in agreement with them. I don't think we should expel students, but I'm all for a suspension, I've got to be honest. But 41.8%, nearly 42, thought that you should just fail the assignment in question. Now, I've been arguing at my own university, if a student outsources their work, whether they pay for it or not, they get somebody else to do the work, they haven't in any way met the learning outcomes, and to give them simply a fail for that assignment is no consequence at all. The student was going to fail anyway because they didn't do the work. Now, as I mentioned, Rowena Harper and I are working on an OLT project at the moment, and we've got some amazing new data which is showing the importance of the teaching and learning environment, the critical importance of the teacher and their relationship with the student, about whether students will choose to outsource their work or not. And we'll be sharing that shortly in a symposium at UniSA. And certainly that work and the data we have from over 15,000 students is going to inform this academic integrity program with Epigeum. Some other research in the UK found that half of the participants in one survey there, it was actually just a little qualitative project with 90 students, but half of those said they'd be willing to buy an assignment from a cheat site, depending on the circumstances. And we've got a nice quote here from a student in an academic integrity discussion where they've said, when we have a group task, the first thing we do is sit down and ask the question, should we buy the assignment or do it ourselves? Which one will be quicker and get the best result? And this student said it brazenly, as if this was a strategic, innovative and entrepreneurial approach to doing their work in a master's program. I've given you the link there to Rowena's and mine and numerous other colleagues as well. Karen Van Herringen, I think, might be listening in. She's also on our project from Griffith. We have the University of Sydney and also the University of Swansea with Phil Newton as well. So international best practice is always being espoused here as needing a multi-pronged approach. And our colleagues Phil Newton and Chris Lang in the Handbook of Academic Integrity talked about a multi-pronged approach which uses technology such as text matching software and other types of technology such as online proctoring services, obviously thinking about assessment design and focusing on that, about how we actually assess our students so that, and again our data from our current project shows that there is a link with assessment design, with many types of assessment being more likely to be outsourced. Chris and Phil were totally on the money when they said that relationship building is part of that multi-pronged approach. We need to really focus on that. They talked about really thinking about legislation which requires a cross-institutional and sector-wide approach to make cheat sites illegal. And we are working on that as well night and day, as are other universities around the world. At the moment, there are only academic consequences for students in that they lose marks or they get suspended, but there are no legal consequences for cheat sites. These are scrupulous cheat sites who take students' money. And as you can see by that footnote, the UK's QAA report recently endorsed Chris and Phil's approach. And I've been talking about this for a very long time already. You can have a look at my chapter, Shortcut Students, in Transparency International's book on corruption in higher education, where really this comes from. And you can see the various people who've been talking about it as well. If we're talking about a holistic approach, it has to be at every level of the academic enterprise. We have to really embed and foster academic integrity in the way we promote our universities, through our mission statements and advertising and admissions processes, through our carefully articulated policy, and I've got to say universities are doing a pretty good job there, through our assessment practices and curriculum design, through the information we provide to students, not just at orientation but everywhere, and with a visual campaign. We need to embed and support for targeted support, so particular groups who we know are vulnerable. We know our international students struggle. We know students who are coming in later to university struggle. We've already identified the students who are vulnerable. We need to provide embedded and targeted support for those students, and we need to partner with students. We need students to be champions of this. We need to provide professional development for staff and partner that with research training, because academic integrity doesn't stop at undergraduate level. Using those new technologies, as Chris and Phil talked about in their chapter, not just for detection, but for education as well. And as the HEA, the Higher Education Academy, mentioned in 2011, we need some sort of standing committee or an office or someone who's responsible for this, someone who says, yes, I have a remit for promoting this at my university. So that takes me to the program, the exciting new program with Epigeum. Look, I've rushed through 100 different ideas that I've been thinking about and talking about for many years. But what I want to do is bring together all of those ideas in this program and do something which is much more than just teaching academic skills to students, but we will do that. And it's much more than teaching ethics and values to students, but we will do that. And it's much more than focusing on plagiarism and how to avoid it and how to manipulate text. We're going to do all of that because that just goes without saying. That's critical, and that'll form an important part, particularly of our introductory module for our first year students. It's going to do all of that, but I think it has a much more ambitious agenda. We want to provide a consistent training program which addresses the needs of all those various stakeholders, for teaching staff, administrative staff, and students at all stages of their study. Not just first year students, not just in orientation as if we've done that, tick that box, it's done, but at first year, second year, and senior levels. Because we want to provide, we have this agenda which goes beyond just this training program. We want to provide a foundation for a reinvigorated academic culture which has integrity at the centre. So I do think we are confronting new and serious academic integrity challenges, and I think that requires new responses, which is why we need this program. I think providers of higher education at all levels need to commit to a systemic and holistic approach which really does think about all of those stakeholders. It does require a commitment of resources though. It's not something which is going to happen just because we talk about it at our DivTalc or our academic board. A real commitment of resources, and I think we have to put in place something which says, yes, every one of those stakeholders has had the same message, and it's a consistent one. I think the new academic integrity program which I'm developing with Epigeum will just be the first step towards building that culture, and I'm excited to be leading it. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move on to Rachel's presentation.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much, Tracy. How can I follow that? That's brilliant. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the academic integrity collaboration, why it's different. We believe the program that we're developing is unique, and I also hope that it will be groundbreaking. Tracy talked about the idea that many of our academic integrity processes are just scratching the surface, and we believe that this online course is a way to go beyond that. So what's different about the program we're developing? Tracy's talked a lot about this, but we're taking a holistic approach. For the first time, we're proposing a course that doesn't just target students, and that's the absolute key difference. And there are issues that are raised if we don't tackle this effectively, if we don't, if we just talk to students, then what other issues are we leaving open? You might be used to seeing a traditional pit stop approach to plagiarism and integrity courses online. Our program is different because we take a graduated approach. What that means is we're offering 3 separate student courses, one aimed at students when they first start, one when they're progressing through the middle of their studies, and then one course for when they're getting more advanced and approaching graduation. This little and often approach is, proven by the research to be more effective and engaging for the students. The courses will look at academic integrity skills and practices across a range of disciplines. So what are the issues that are affecting students doing courses like computer science, where they might be submitting code rather than essays? What does it mean to use credible sources if you're studying visual arts? We will not just be looking at academic integrity for subjects based in written assessment. The programmes can be used and will be developed so they can be used as standalone tools, but they will be far better if they're used as part of a blended approach. Again, Tracy talked about having a counter campaign against cheating, and we believe this programme can be used as part of that wider programme. We'll be developing innovative tools that you can use to implement the programme, so you don't just pop the course on a website and leave it there. We'll provide workshop materials and even assessments that you can build onto the end of the course so that students can test out their learning and you can evaluate how much they've learned. There will be an emphasis, well, not an emphasis, but there will be coverage on contract cheating in both programmes. So we'll look at it from the staff perspective and the student perspective. Why shouldn't students do it? What is it? What are the consequences of getting engaged in that kind of behaviour? And for staff, we really want to bring everyone up to speed on the mores of contract cheating so that they're better equipped to deal with it. We'll have hopefully the leading contract cheating experts working with us on developing this content, which is really exciting. We'll be developing an impact measurement tool so that you can evaluate the effectiveness of the course. How is it helping your students and what has it done specifically for your staff? So let's take a closer look at the student programme. What will it cover? I've just put a basic overview here of some of the questions that the courses will help the students to answer. Obviously there is a lot more detail I could show you at this stage. We do have quite a detailed draft outline, but this is kind of a bird's eye view. A few things to point out. The course overall for the students should take about 3 to 4 hours, so that will be a kind of a 1-hour course at each entry point. The course will be made up of short screens. Every screen will have an interactive activity on it, and interactivity is absolutely at the heart of what we do. And we'll build evaluation tools into the end of each course, so students can take quizzes, they can submit sample pieces, all sorts of ways in which they can practice and test out their learning. So course 1 is that course for when they first start, helps them look at things like what's a credible source, what do you mean when you say use evidence, and again we'll do that across a range of disciplines. Course 2 is when they're building up their skills and values about blending sources, original thinking, issues like that. And then the third course is looking at some more advanced material around collusion, collaboration, although I must be clear that will be threaded throughout the courses as well. We wouldn't just leave collaboration till the end because we're aware that students collaborate from semester 1. What about the staff course? So the staff programme, is written with 3 different audiences in mind. It is broken down into 5 modules, and the modules are relevant for those who teach, those who support teaching staff, and those who support students. So the staff go into the courses and then can select which modules are most relevant to them. It's up to them to kind of pick and choose the content that suits them. We believe that everyone has a role to play in academic integrity culture. I hope that's why we're all here, and everyone's role is slightly different, so this tailored approach really allows for that. The modules will look at a range of things. We have a module on using technology to promote academic integrity, because technology is just one of the tools that can be used. So text matching software as a formative and a summative assessment tool, and academic integrity issues when teaching online. We will look at breaches in some detail, why students may breach guidelines, what the best practice is for managing breaches and how to collect and analyse your data. We'll look at good assessment design, and this is absolutely crucial, our teaching and learning piece. And this will be a really great module with some brilliant case studies and the most up-to-date evidence on how to make the case for good assessment design. We'll look at supporting students in an academic integrity culture too, what that means on a practical level and things that can be done to work with that. And then our final module, supporting staff in an academic integrity culture. What can we do to ensure staff have all the tools they need and are consistent and are delivering a really great academic integrity culture? The staff core modules, all in total, should add up to 2.5 hours. So we're talking about short modules that people can dip in and out of and take the bits they need when they need them. So now we've looked at the course in a little bit of detail, I can tell you a little bit more about what it's like to be part of a development group. So the development group members that we bring on board to collaborate with us on these programs will work with the program's lead advisors, the authors, the reviewers and the Epigeum team to shape the program in a number of ways. You will help us agree the detailed course curriculum. You'll participate in a program launch workshop, which means coming to meet with everybody and spend a couple of days with us looking in very much detail at what would be on each screen and telling us what you like, what you don't like, what your needs are for your institution. You get to peer review the materials as they're worked into courses, and you really do get to share your feedback with the other development group members when you do that. We can arrange to come to your institution to interview your students and staff. We can do this to showcase the work that you're doing and show your students' perspective on the issues. The input that we have from the development group members really ensures that our programs match what you need, and it's that's at the heart of sort of providing high quality and well-rounded resources. If you are choosing to use an Epigeum course, I should just explain there are two ways that you can do this. There's the collaboration, which was what we're talking about today, which involves universities investing a fee to join this collaboration at the beginning of the project. And then you have the chance to make significant input into the course development. Further customisation is possible for the programme once you're rolling it out, and you would receive a full programme licence in perpetuity as part of your collaboration deal. The alternative is to wait and to purchase a licence for the course once it's published. You can still customise the course, but there's no opportunity to shape the content or influence the scope, and you can purchase licences for 1, 3 or 5 years. So those are the two options, and today we're talking about the collaboration, which is the really exciting bit. At Epigeum, with the development of all our courses, we take what we call an expertise-driven approach. So the development group of leading universities and subject experts all invest in the product with their money and their time to really share absolute best practice and ensure that everything in the course is completely evidence-based, up-to-date and really serves its users. We have lead advisor Tracey Bretag, which is just hugely exciting, and we also build an advisory panel around her too, so we can ensure we're involving the strongest voices. We hire authors and we hire reviewers, so every part of the course is scrutinised by those individuals as well as the development group. And then we have the Epigeum team. We have our editorial team in-house, we have all our developers in-house, all our designers are here, and we have a team of implementation experts who work with you to help you implement the course and deliver it in a blended way. So here's a little snapshot of the process in a timeline. I've already flagged up the key points for the development group universities, but I talked about this workshop. So this is a really exciting event that will probably happen towards the end of this year. So if you're in the collaboration group, you send delegates to the workshop, you get to meet the authors, the reviewers, the Epigeum staff, and this is where we look at the outline of the course in a lot of detail, and we rework it based on what you tell us at that event. The authors then beetle off and write their draft course. We then put it online, and you use an online commenting tool to tell us what you like, what you don't like. All the feedback that comes from the development group is shared between you and shared with the authors and reviewers once it's been through editorial interpretation, if you like. And the revisions that the authors make will be made based on what you advise. Our courses generally go through about 4 or 5 revisions before they're built, so we take that process extremely seriously. We can film at your university, like I said, and that would happen towards the testing and development phase. At this point, we're building the course and making it interactive and doing animations and creating cartoons, all that kind of thing. And then once we publish it, obviously you receive access to the course in perpetuity. We provide technical support and implementation support for a period of time after publication, and then we provide ongoing updates. That whole process from workshop to publication is around 12 months. I would say that the full life cycle of an Epigeum product is 2 years. So myself and Tracy have been working on this since last summer, and so we really do spend a lot of time creating these products, so they really are the best that you can get.
Great, thank you very much, Rachel, for that insightful presentation. Okay, so now I'm just going to quickly demo one of our published courses. Firstly, I'm going to take you through the key features from a typical screen before showing you some of the main features across our courses. So the students and staff will gain access to the course through a portal. Once you click on the course, it will take you to the main welcome screen. By clicking on the tabs, you'll be able to find a few things about the course. So we've got a list of authors, the experts in the fields who wrote the material, learning outcomes of the course, a detailed course structure to know what to expect along the way, a list of supporting institutions, so this is where your institution would be recognised on the course, and then some of the course highlights to look out for. Okay, so now moving on to the main course screen. I'll begin to highlight a couple of features relevant to all of our courses. At the top of every screen, we have what's called a learning outcome or a screen challenge in this case. A screen challenge relates to the topic covered on the screen, usually a question for reflection, and a learning outcome also shows what the student should have learned or should be able to do after completing the screen. We also offer an estimated duration for each screen, so the student has an idea of how long it will take to work through the screen. The timing doesn't include sidebar activities. We use real students when writing the timings, so we're mindful of the fact that the students work through at varying paces, so it might not be relevant to all. All the screens have a text version of the course, so it's fully accessible for those using screen readers or who are unable to use the interactive version for any reason. Down the side of the panel, you will see what we refer to as pods. So here's one. We have a few more here. These offer additional activities with extra information on the topic at hand and enable us to keep the main screen a nice and manageable size. One pod that's quite interesting is the Your Context pod. These are handy pods and they enable your institution to include your own text and links to your own resources and websites. So it's a great way of customizing the course and point your students or staff in the right direction towards the right guidelines and places for extra support. Now looking at the main screen, we will see a few different activities. On this module, we can see a video. The video, as Rachel mentioned before, development group members are invited to interview. So we record people at your institution, and that way we get real case studies and you can then showcase what you're doing to the wider world. The videos really help us bring the material to life. They feature real students and staff from all ranges of backgrounds, including international and mature students. We also have a transcript for those who possibly English isn't their first language or those who want to read in more detail. On the next screen, we can see there are various different activities. So here we can see a presentation or activity, and this presents the core learning content and allows students to gain key skills and knowledge. Further down, we can see there's an interactive activity. So this allows students to apply the skills they have gained throughout the online course. All of our interactive activities provide feedback. I hope I have given you a taste of what an Epigeum online course looks like with this demonstration. So if you do have any questions, we're going to move on to the Q&A section now. Yep, so here we go. Let me just check and see if we've had any questions in the meantime. Tracy, Julie says, excellent presentation. So she's enjoyed that. I've got another question actually. So what's the hype about contract cheating? Isn't it just business as usual?
You know, I don't think it is. A couple of years ago when we first sort of started hearing some of these scandals, I really did think that. I'm like, oh, you know, we've had cheating before. I think there's a couple of things which have changed. One is the proliferation of the commercial providers. You know, students have always outsourced their work at varying levels. They've got their friends, their brothers, you know, their mum and dad sometimes to do their work when they weren't engaged. And you know, that's still happening as well. But I think there's been a proliferation of contract cheat sites and also a change in our mentality towards a sharing economy. You know, I think that's why that scandal last month sort of broke. Airtasker, for example, is just like the epitome of outsourcing. If you need your toenails clipped, you know, you can get someone to come to your house in 10 minutes and they'll clip your toenails for a fee. There's sort of almost nothing you can't outsource now. So, and you know, that's good in lots of ways, really, you know, really fantastic. But it's extended into the realm of students also outsourcing their learning. So, look, I think it's different. As I said, I think for 15 years we've been working doggedly in the Australasian context to really try to make sure our students understand academic integrity, make sure they get the support they need to develop their academic literacy skills such as referencing and avoiding plagiarism and so on. But I think it's quite different. I think we're seeing a change in mentality, and we're also seeing a change in mentality for staff. First of all, you know, they're also thinking, oh, well, it's outsourcing. And there's also a sort of sense of despondency. Well, what can we do? How can we prove it? People keep saying, how do I prove it? There's nothing I can do. I'll just mark it, and what can I do? So I guess we want to provide staff with the tools so they can identify it and know how they develop evidence so they can actually then take it forward to a decision maker. And so they can develop curriculum, which is less likely to be outsourced, although our data shows us just about anything can be outsourced. You know, well, actually everything. But there are certainly assessment items which are less likely to be outsourced. So I think there's been a real shift. I really do. The last couple of years, a change in the way we see outsourcing, a change in our sense of the sharing economy. I think there is a difference between the way staff and students see it. I think the whole language of university where, you know, students are customers paying big bucks for a product that they're going to use to get a job has also changed motivations. So, you know, something that Rachel didn't show you is, for example, in that first course, one of the very first questions we're going to ask students is, why are you here? What are you doing at university? And I noticed that other module also starts with that idea of trying to get students to the heart of their motivation for studying. And we're going to ask the same questions of staff. What are you doing as an academic? What are you doing as a higher education teacher? Is it just so that you can mark and pump people through to graduate? Or is there something more going on? And try to get people back to their original motivations. So I don't think it's business as usual. I think there's been a qualitative shift in the last couple of years which makes the need for this new program more urgent than ever.
Great, thank you very much, Tracy. There's one more question and then we'll move on to the contact details. So, what does this course offer international students, given that research shows clearly they're a vulnerable student group?
Absolutely, they certainly are, and every bit of data, every bit of research I've ever done has shown that. They're more likely to, our current data showing, they're 2 to 3 times more likely to outsource their work. The data I collected a few years ago showed that international students, I think it was 2.3 times less likely to demonstrate confidence about what academic integrity is, and just as and twice as likely to be called in for an academic integrity breach. And that's just my data in Australia. The international data shows the same. So totally right. Our international students are a particularly vulnerable group, and we absolutely will be focusing on their needs. You know, there'll be certainly parts of the course, part of the program, which addresses their particular needs. We know that when we teach international students well and provide them with the skills and support they need to develop academic literacies, that's just good teaching, and English as a first language, native speaking students will also benefit. But they'll be able to flip through that part of the program quicker, and our international students will have more time, more focus to meet their particular needs. So look, we know they're a vulnerable group. My data is showing it's not because they think cheating is less wrong. Far from it. In fact, the attitudes are very similar to domestic students, but they are more vulnerable in terms of their language and their educational prep for an Australian degree. So without a doubt, those students' needs are going to be met in this course.
Thank you, Tracy. There's another question from Fiona. She wants to ask Rachel, will the new product work in Desire to Learn?
Hi, Fiona. Yes, I can pretty confidently say it will, that I don't think there's a BMO we've come across that we haven't been able to work with. I will speak to our production manager and get a definite yes for you, but I would be hugely confident that yes, it would work in Desire to Learn.
Okay, and one more quick question just came through. Will the course cover library information literacy skills development, Tracy?
Absolutely, yes. I think that almost goes without saying. I mean, library skills are part of academic literacies. We would be remiss if we didn't, especially in the introductory course for students, but as we know, it doesn't stop there. Teaching students how to use a source, how to identify an academic source, what is the peer review process, how to use databases, how do you use all the services that the universities are already offering. That's the thing. We have RefWorks and EndNote, and we have amazing facilities being offered by universities, and students aren't even taking advantage of it. So definitely, when I talk about academic literacies, for me, that includes first and foremost what you do at the library.
Great, thank you, Tracy. Thank you for answering all the questions, and thank you, audience, for asking the questions. So now I'm just going to move on to the last part, where is the contact details for you to get in contact with us. Many of you have already been in touch with some of our colleagues in regards to this new course. We can give you a lot more detail in regards to pricing and specific requirements for your institution. So please do contact us if you have any questions via epigeum@aup.com, and your local sales rep will be in touch, or by registering your interest on our website at the address shown here. So it's www.epigeum.com/collaboration/get-involved. You'll find that on our website. So as I mentioned before, a recording of this presentation will be sent to you so you can share it with any colleagues you feel may find this of interest, or if you want to watch it again for your own interest. Thank you very much for attending this webinar today. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and thank you very much to the speakers. It was really informative. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you and goodbye.